Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the session today. We are talking about managing the emotional stress of the past year. And we have some really fabulous folks joining us today. I want to share just a couple of slides with you, but my computer is being a little bit funky. So I think we might just skip it. And I will just run through some of our opening pieces without those slides. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Molly Hillegas. I am the Senior Regional Manager with Welcoming America. And on behalf of all of those at Welcoming America, we'd like to welcome you to day 2 of the Welcoming Interactive 2021. Before we begin, I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, who are Western Union and Walmart. And so we appreciate all of the support they give to us for this event and every day. Before we begin, I just have a couple of other housekeeping items. If you have questions, please enter them in the chat. We are also going to be using an interactive feature for this session called Jamboard. Jamboard is a great way for us all to be able to have some conversations about this important topic with each other. And so Jenny, my colleague, will be posting that link in the chat as we move along with some instructions. So if you're not familiar with it, don't worry about it now, and we will go from there. We also invite you to engage with us on social media during this session. We have a hashtag. It's called Interactive 2021, and you can use it on any platform that you think people will acknowledge you on and follow you in and jump right in on. So thank you for doing that. Now it is my pleasure to introduce you to our speakers today. First, we have Emmy Gittleman, who is the founder and executive director from Get Empowered. She is joined by Sabi, the co-director and entertainment facilitator at Get Empowered. Also, Heather Quackenboss, human development and relations special educator for Extension La Crosse County, and my actual neighbor in real life. And also Elisa Benitez Hernandez, who is the office manager at Our Bridge for Kids in Charlotte, North Carolina. Also the host city for the Welcoming Interactive in 2022. So thank you for those folks who are joining us today. Before we kick this off, I want to just give you guys just a quick rundown of the logistics of how we're going to make this session work today. And I invite you to participate in it like we are joining each other at a dinner table or coffee table or around a stand-up table in a hotel bar somewhere in a distant city in a far away place. One of the things I think we miss sometimes with a more traditional panel is the expertise in the room and the ability for our panelists and speakers to interact with each other. And so we're really trying to promote some of that today. The other piece that I will say is that, we're going to be talking about managing stress and managing our own emotions and the emotions of our communities and the people we love and the people we serve. And that can bring up a lot of feelings. And I just wanted to, remind everyone that while we are joined by some amazing practitioners here today, please don't consider the content of this session to be a substitute for the mental health care that may be out there available to you and needed if you are in crisis or someone you love or know is in crisis. We have some resources around that, and we will can share those in the Jamboard as well, and a couple of them are already in there. So just throw that out there before we jump in. So grab a cup of tea, cozy on up to our dinner table conversation. We are going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to throw out a huge question to our panelists, and we're going to start there. And so, you know, that the question that we're really thinking about today, and that we've been thinking about throughout the whole year and as we move into the future, is really this. After the year that we have had, you know, plus a few months, what would it take for individuals and organizations and communities really to champion wellness and resiliency for all? And so with that, I'm gonna toss this back to our panelists. And luckily my good friend Heather said that she'd dive in first. So here we go. Heather, the floor is yours.
Right, and no pressure, right? Of course. So thank you, everyone. And I'm just going to admit, first of all, I'm from the Midwest. I live on Ho-Chunk land. I probably carry some of those stereotypes that you would think of when you think of the Midwest. Not just the Midwest nice, like we say hi to everyone, unless we travel to Las Vegas, where we learn very quickly not to make eye contact with anyone there. I also can be cynical, snarky, and flippant. Those stereotypes are true in me. So I will just say that right now. And honestly, some of that did help me through this last year. And so humor, whether it be quite appropriate or maybe leaning more Saturday Night Live, has helped. When we started this pandemic, I had broken my leg because the ice won that day on a run. And so I thought that it was going to be a time of needing to like learn to ask for help. And then the world shut down. And so I tried to get on my, okay, all these goals, I could get my violin out. It is still in the case. I could really brush up on my Russian. I have not. So a lot of the things that I thought initially didn't happen. And what I realized, I teach a lot of, I don't want to use the term self-care, but frankly, self-care. And I realized through this year that that term's a little bit bull. Because here we are existing in all these systems that are oppressive, that are not equitable, and that when we put the responsibility on individuals to take care of themselves when we can't as a system or a community, that's not fair. And so what I've really been learning is resiliency is that community and that support, and that might be the people that we have in our lives, that might be the organizations that we work in. So that has been my big takeaway this year. And thanks for letting me go first.
I'll take the initiative to go second. Thank you, Heather, for putting the words. My name is Sabi. I work with Getting Power. I work arts both as a capoeira and folklore practitioner. I'm also a leader for the Getting Power organization. And I Get Empower, what we offer, some of the programs are no cost or low cost programs, arts program that it's suited for age 3 to 150, 20 years old, because we work with all the populations and demographic of age. And we do anywhere from capoeira to yoga, mindfulness, meditation, healing arts, as a hoping that we all, the most important is becoming leaders, right? We try to uplift, we try to support in any way we can, the community that we're working today. During the recent pandemic, like that we all had to do the shelter in place, it was extremely eye-opening, like Heather say, what we do, how we do it, how can we support each other in this time. It was really hard as an art organization based where we do multicultural arts and also healing arts to step back, and realize that we have a mission that's uplifting. In our mission says uplifting. So it was our engagement coming through this virtual, going from in-person where we can sit it with people and sit down and have a great conversation, be a great listener, to have the Zoom that a lot of the times, like in circumstance, we don't interact because everyone either has the screen off or they not participate in the chat. And as a leader, sometimes you're speaking alone and you want to make sure that you engage properly. And what we did, we knew that our families and students needed us the most during the lockdown. So we extremely brought the community together. We extremely, step back. We got all leaders and teachers and say, here's how we want to proceed. Like, we want to engage. We want to call Heather, call Elisa, call Emmy, call Molly, even if they screen it off, and say, I see you. Validate them to the work that they are doing. Because I know they might be shy. They might be going through something. And we want to validate at all times, at all costs. So all our teachers that was not tech savvy, they all learning, the back endings had a best support, and they were engaged in different ways. There are classes that we offer and what we lead, there are 300 participants, and you look at the screens and everyone's moving, everyone's engaging. We have this amazing wellness program that we do. It's like for adults and everyone just engage in it. So that's what we learn, and we try to do our best in a sense of like engaging and leading and call everyone out and make sure that we are there for them in different ways. Thank you.
I just want to piggy off what Sabi has said. I like, the way that you stated validating, people, because I think one of the biggest things or takeaways that I got out of this pandemic was the importance of coming directly to the people instead of waiting on people to come to us. And listening really as intently as possible to the needs of people, because I think so often as advocates, as activists, as nonprofit leaders, we think that our missions are the most important. And in a pandemic, I think we all realize that sometimes our work is not as relevant as we think it is in that present moment, because when you're working with families or children, as is the case with our bridge, who are immigrants and refugees, or with marginalized communities, you realize that these are people who are going to be some of the most directly impacted by a pandemic, who have literally their most basic needs being challenged on a daily basis. And community care is so essential and so crucial to ensuring the well-being of community and to champion resiliency, because during the pandemic, one of the most frustrating things I saw really was just the fact that it really put into perspective and into spotlight glaringly just how obvious many of these systems are so oppressive and so built on inequality. A lot of what we saw in Charlotte, for example, was that even basic healthcare information was not available in a variety of language to our families. Many of our families had no access to resources. They had no idea where to even get basic assistance. Many places closed that they would have otherwise gone for help in that moment. And I think it's when we realize as nonprofit leaders that we have to be dynamic and that we have to listen as intently as possible and check in directly with the people that we work with and ask them, how are you feeling? What are you going through in this moment? What is it that you actually need right now, irregardless of whether we're an after school center, irregardless of whether, we provide ESL classes or what have you. In that moment, really, it's just asking, what can I do for you right now? What is it that you need? And how can I help to fill those gaps? And so I would hope, right, that at this point, after a whole year and some months, that maybe we are finally getting to showing light and closing some of those gaps that exist.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. My name's Emmy. I'm the founder and executive director of Get Empowered. I really appreciate what everyone has said so far. It's just extremely nourishing. So thank you for these wise words. Part of what I wanted to share was that the challenge that we felt was that we wanted to be able to build bridges and break down barriers around the immediacy of everyone feeling so disconnected. And that by everyone being forced to either stay at home or wherever they were based out of, it immediately put up roadblocks. So we have continued to research and learn and innovate and connect with as many organizations and individuals as we can to figure out, hell or high water, how do we connect with people? And sometimes we do it through social media. Sometimes it's through phone calls and text messages. Sometimes it's live Zoom or virtual events. We created a whole series of videos where we could get things to people and build YouTube channels where they could access things around the world 24/7. So that's a big part of what has become even more important to our mission, is to humanize people, to create safe spaces where there is equity and accessibility, knowing that people are going to be reached in very different capacities. We know firsthand that it's not an assumed thing that people have technology or Wi-Fi. So we can't rely upon some of the things that many of us have that are quite luxurious for many communities. Other communities don't. So we also have been fortunate that we are an organization made up of a lot of creatives. And that has been an advantage for us because by nature, we think outside the box and might do things in unusual ways sometimes that now have come in very handy. So the innovation and the determination to not use the disconnect as a crutch, but as an invitation to turn it into new possibilities. And we also have flipped the script a little and taken our large team that's grown actually, ironically, during this pandemic, and added a lot of younger people into the mix as our fellow community engagement and outreach specialists. So we have a huge internship program we've developed now with teenagers, and literally doing what all of you have said, asking the questions, what do you need? How can we empower you? And then how can you help empower others? Because we are finding that circular, holistic element of trying to feel a little empowered yourself, and then the gift of empowering others keeps feeding us, and it goes full circle. So as we get empowered in small practical ways or even impractical ways or overcome challenges, and then we have one person or more than one person that we can then turnkey something to, it just adds to that growing connection and movement of humanizing people, of breaking down barriers and making things that weren't possible. And we don't believe in one prescribed way of doing things, which is a blessing, but also a challenge. We don't have a generic cookie cutter way that we say, this is how to get well, or this is how to connect with people, because it's always trial and error. And I think the other things that we have found to be very helpful is to try to invite everybody to find one touchstone that helps you breathe and just feel some sense of safety or grounding. Because if you can do that, which may not be easy by any means, if you can find one thing that is a touchstone, whether it's food or a person or music or nature or staying hydrated or whatever it is, that ability to breathe is going to create an enormous amount of relief for your body, mind, and spirit, so that it's a holistic process. Because when you can't breathe because you're so stressed or overwhelmed or feeling however you're feeling, it cuts everything back and you're coming from a deficit. So that's something that we are finding is really important, that the feeling valued and valuable and that you matter also has to connect deeply with reminding yourself of the power of breathing and kind of letting that ruminate around you. And I think Sabi addressed some of the other sides of the ways in which we connect with people through healing arts and mindfulness and diversity, inclusion, community outreach. But it's for us, it begins and ends with people. It's about people and that we're human beings and that we all matter.
One of the themes that I heard you all speak about. I mean, that there were several through lines here, but I think I'd love for us to like dig in a little bit more into this piece about like validating people where they are in that particular moment and how important that can be for building resiliency, maintaining well-being, and like how can we carry that kind of as we move out of whatever, as we move into whatever the next phase of our work is, and in our human relationships as well.
Well, before pandemic, there was one, before all this change and you tap, the validation. We used to do this training, or I used to lead this training for leaders, where a lot of the times, it was a simple question to them. A lot of them then come with me with the structure of like, oh, we all going through this deep, restructure of the company organization, and we're feeling there are a lot of challenges. And I just asked this simple question: when you went through the door of your building or your office, did you address the person that opening the door? Did you say hello, Mr. or Miss? Do you know the person that cleans the floor for you, that sweep the floor for you to go? Did you ask or do you know everyone's naming organization that you lead, that it sits under you, and how, like, because it's foundation. Any validation, it means something, because that person that opens the door, or the person that sweeps the floor, or the person that engage in the different way, just answer their cell phone. And if you know their name, if you say hello, Mr. Sabia, hello, Miss Amy, their person is gonna validate you, and it's gonna release the stress they manage of the organization. It's gonna make you successful because they know that at the end of the day, oh, did you ask how are they doing? And a lot of times we ended up even here in the virtual settings that we don't ask. That's why I say validation is important. And the leaders are all, they step back and is like, oh, I was like, do you know the name of the person that opened the door to you? Or that, like, literally, do you, like, and they step back and just say no. I was like, try to go back down that and just ask the name, ask how they're doing. Tomorrow, they're gonna come with a different perspective. You're gonna come in, once they open the door, you're gonna say, good morning, Mr. Sabia. Mr. Sabia is gonna tell everybody in the organization that, the CEO of there, he's amazing. He knows, he's asking how he's doing. And same thing, we did it through virtual, was a little different. I asked them the same question. Have you connect with everyone under you? Have you send the message and say how, important they are for your organization, for your school, for that? Just a simple question: how they doing and how important they are. And a lot of them say, no, I did not address. I just asked them to do this and I just order. I just deliver things, like delegate. And a lot of the times we tend to delegate things. We don't ask how are you? That's the first thing. And even if it's a simple question, even if they say something, you're like, okay, move on, and we forget that. That's the validation that I think it changed a lot of prospect in organization and how you feel. Like, how do I feel when I see someone and just instead of saying, hey, can I have this? It's like, how you doing? Like, how are you today? Everything, how's the family? It's simple questions that helps us to take a deep breath and say, he or she cares about me. And, this is that's what it's for me. That works for when I address with the team and when I go to the schools and I see every kid and I leave, and next time I meet them and they're like, and I say their name, they're like, wait, you know my name? You remember my name? I was like, yeah, I do remember your name because this is real. It's not like, oh, I just call your name by, or I just met. No, my what brings back to my teaching days is that in any circumstance, I used to go to a new class or in an event. I had 30 seconds to learn as many names as possible and address one by their name, because this is validation. This is important for me. Goes back to a foundation that I carry, which is respect. I always ask the question to the student, look, I want to, before we start anything, thinking what does respect means to you. Now taking it and lead. Pass it on the message of respect. Thank you.
I think that's something, at our bridge that we took very seriously too. Throughout the entire year, we had to go back to our roots, and that was asking directly to all the families and children that we work with before we made any moves. And we constantly surveyed our families, even throughout, as any changes were happening with school leaders, local leaders, state and national officials. We asked, this new law has come into play, or this new decision has been made by the school system. How are you feeling about that? And we always said, we at our bridge will not make any moves, and we will not make any changes to this or that until our families give us the go ahead and say that that is what they need or what they want at the moment. And I think it just really demonstrates, right, the importance of listening to people, because these are often the people who are most overlooked. Like Sabia was saying, it's the person who is at the grocery store, it's the person who sweeps, the janitor, the doorman. All of these people are often the most overlooked, who you would never think about on a day-to-day basis. And you have to ask that person, what is your name? And you might find out some really extraordinary things about them that you otherwise would never have found out if you hadn't made that connection in the first place. And I think that's how we build community, right? Is by actually talking to people and starting these conversations, no matter how challenging they might be at times. And I think at least we were very fortunate that because we work with immigrants and refugees, we made it very clear that we were going to make ourselves as accessible as possible to every single family we could. So if there was a family who spoke Swahili and we don't have a Swahili speaker, we will pay and find someone to do it. If we can't speak a dialect, we will find someone who speaks that dialect and make that connection so that we can help this and support this family. And that's the way we had to do it. We had to figure it out. And even as nonprofits, right, in our case, we just had to tell our funders, look, the money you gave us, I know it's meant for this, but we have to use it for this other thing that people need right now. And somehow it worked. And I think it just goes to show, right, that you constantly have to evolve, especially in a pandemic right now. And you constantly have to meet people where they're at. And as Emmy was saying, right, technology is a luxury for many of us, or for many people. And so it means going out into the neighborhoods, knocking door to door. It means being as accessible as possible on a daily basis so that people can reach you and so that you can reach them as well. And the same thing, right? I think it's also about protecting people's dignity, their privacy, and their autonomy and ability to make decisions for themselves. I think one of the biggest things that I found was how often donors and even advocates are guilty of this, and even nonprofit leaders are guilty of this, is photographing people who are receiving assistance or aid or any type of care from you. And the reality is that, as innocent as that may seem, that's actually quite damaging and harmful, because you're taking people's privacy and their dignity away at one of their most vulnerable moments. And I think as people who work with communities, we have to always ensure the dignity and privacy of the people that we work with, because that is their story to tell at the end of the day. And that is their challenge and their struggle to choose to share when and if they so choose. So at the end of the day, it's all about conversation, and it's all about protecting the dignity of people on their own terms.
Thank you. I think one of the pieces that keeps resonating here is around that personal connection. And I think one of the things that we see as we sort of move throughout our work and life is that like we don't give ourselves the time to make those connections. Are there like strategies I think that you all use in your work, or that like we can all think about as like the, I don't know, the touchstone, if you will, to like, some of this I think doesn't come naturally to us because we're so used to like, we go every day, like boom, 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 I'm doing this, and this. And so how do we remind ourselves to do that if it's not something that we are, how do we coach ourselves in that space, I guess is the question I'm asking.
I can share something fun that we have found works really well for all ages. We call them mindfulness moments. Because we want to be gentle on ourselves and realize that sometimes a moment is literally like, if you're lucky, you can even create that space. So a moment could mean different things to different people, and it can be different lengths of time to different people. But is there a way that we can find throughout the day one mindfulness moment and do something to support your body, mind, or spirit, or be of service to help someone else? So that's something that we've actually found to be, I'm going to use a funny word because this word has been used so much because of COVID. It's contagious in a good way. So we talk about kindness is contagious and empowerment can be contagious. Well, we think mindfulness moments can be contagious. It could be as simple as a compliment to someone. Could be just remembering to drink some water or get up from the computer and go to the bathroom and like wash your face. Anything, stretching, exercise, it doesn't matter what it is. There's no right or wrong, but finding a way to carve out something each day for mindfulness. And a lot of who we're working with has said they just couldn't do that. So we were talking about mindfulness being spiritual. It could be physical, it could be social emotional, it could be something creative, it could be something cognitive. And we oftentimes take moments in our activities and seminars and classes and workshops for mindfulness moments where we start with something simple around gratitude. What is one thing that you can mentally in your head give gratitude and grace for, even if it's, thank God this day is over and I'm laying my head down in my bed. And you don't have to say it out loud necessarily, but we try to just plant seeds for those mindfulness moments, because when we start to dial in and give gratitude that we gave ourselves a mindfulness moment, sometimes they organically grow and become more easy for us to access. And when we can't do it, we give ourselves permission to, tomorrow's a new day. And I think another thing that we do, and we can do it really quickly right now, is we want to make sure everyone has voice and choice and that everyone somehow gets to connect. So can I invite everybody to use the chat and just say a global greeting or any kind of greeting you want, but just, I want to flood the chat with every single person typing in something to just say a greeting or a hello. It can be in any language you want or no language at all. It could even be like a cool word or a virtual hug. But I'd love for everybody to just flood the chat and have your voice heard and that you're seen and validated and we're connecting. I'm going to throw out a konnichiwa. Awesome, this is beautiful. Hopefully you all can see this. And I'll read a few. Yes, hello, good afternoon, hey you all, namaste, assalamu alaikum, hola, hello, bonjour, good afternoon from Michigan, selamat petang, hi. So just something like that, it starts with hello. That can just open a heart and mind up and just like bring a little joy or relief or again, breath to people. So what we try to do is remove obstacles that cost money and just humanize connection and validation and safety and wellness through just every day appreciating the little things. Oh, this is beautiful. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Do anybody else want to take that one on a little bit or respond to that? Okay. What else is coming up for you in thinking about this and thinking about how the folks who are participating in this session can continue to, you know, keep their own their own wellness and resiliency at the moment. I think I've heard this term recently. Oh, I think we lost Heather. Hopefully she'll pop back in. There we go. One of the terms I've been hearing a lot lately is called, at this time of the pandemic, is called languishing. And how do we use our own resiliency to combat that feeling of languishing? And if you haven't heard that term, then we can talk about it a little more. But
well, so now that Zoom works again, because I had the circle of death and everything grayed out, I'm like, wow, this has happened a few times, right? We talk about Wi-Fi, we talk about all those basic things. One of the things that I had to learn, my family had to learn, and that I really am trying to teach all of the folks that I work with is that F word of feelings. I mean, truly, and I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she often says she's fine. And that could mean I feel murderous to I'm fine, you know, and it goes either way. So it's, what does that mean? So are you fine overwhelmed? Are you fine where I'm just going to get through this day, forget it? And sometimes that's where we are, right? And to learn to sit with that. Honestly, I did some depressed gardening this weekend. I literally was sitting in the muck with my muck, right? And just sitting with it and being okay with that. So often I grew up learning you have to be better, you have to get better, you have to be happy. And yeah, this year has taught us that it's anything but that sometimes. And particularly, I've been pretty privileged. I've been pretty lucky, frankly, during this last year, as well as my whole life, let's be honest. And with that, how do I move ahead? How do I see other people's truths so that they can also sit with it? Can they? So honestly, it's a lot about, frankly, for us, acknowledging those feelings. Hey, right now, I'm not doing so well. Or, hey, you know, when I pick up one of my kids, you look a little frustrated. And frankly, sometimes I've taught some maladaptive coping skills during that, like eating chili cheese fries instead of, but sitting with that emotion. And I think it's okay to sit with that.
There was a great article that I read in the Times where they were talking about languishing. I don't know if anybody has read it, but it was quite enlightening, I thought. So I would recommend, you can Google the article. Oh, great. Yes. Thank you, Jenny, for putting that in the chat. I think this has been an eye-opener for everybody because COVID does not discriminate. Right. So it's not one of these things where some people had to stay home and others didn't. Some people had the, you know, it was kind of, as you said, Molly, this has affected all of us in different ways, but it has affected everybody in some capacity, some more than others, some tragically. And it will for a long time. But I think part of what we are seeing daily that is so humbling and hope inspiring is that it doesn't matter if you're 4 years old or 14 or 40 or 60. There are things that each of us have found in ourselves that allow us to simply just get through the day. And when we share those stories or those experiences, if we are able to find a safe person or a community to do so, it can literally be the make or break between surviving and thriving within a moment or a day or a week or a month. And I think affording people opportunities to have, like I said at the beginning, a touchstone, a person or a group of people where you can find ways to feel safe enough to be vulnerable and be yourself, and also give yourself permission to feel joy and feel good too, when possible. That's really powerful. And I think that giving ourselves permission on that journey to do that is so helpful. The reminder, find a touchstone or a way to get your story out, or if there's not a person or people you can connect with, might there be a way to express it through writing or through exercise, or, you know, to release it somehow and share it somehow. And that can be a big reliever.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off what Heather and Emmy saying two different ways. One is, you know, we work, like my majority work with kids, and I have two beautiful daughters. And they are so naturally, you know, they are so exposed to just be naturally, and the stagnation of, and just be in the present of the moment, to be truthful to what they're feeling, how they're feeling. They're gonna say to you, you know, we as adults, you know, we forget how simple life can be, you know, because we grow into this model that we have to follow rules, we have to do things that are, when we are a child, is naturally to our body, our mind, you know, our feelings. It's okay to cry. I need to cry, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna express. When you're adults, we hold back. We just like, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna be upset. But it's okay. It's okay to expose yourself. It's okay to share your weakness, to ask for help, you know, in different ways, you know, to speak about it, to talk, to find someone that, you know, just sit down and listen to you, you know. Doesn't have to be a professional therapist. Can be a friend, can be you know, just sit down and listen to your child, sit down and listen to a child telling you a story. Like a lot of the times, you know, like I say, you know, sit down in classes that we're leading, and the child helped me to actually implement my lesson, my engagement, because they're so natural to them. You know, I asked you before in our conversation, Molly, you know, a lot of the times I do this activity where, you know the adults, we forget how much children and how much we have in ourselves, where I do this activity where I ask everybody, adults in the room, to do it themselves. Drop a key or drop something on the ground and pick it up after. We adults tend to bend down, leg straight, and pick it up. And oh my God, my back, this and that. You had all the excuse in the world to say that we need to work out, we need to stretch. A child, he will squat down naturally, because it's a natural way. They don't think it's the body. And then we have to go to a specialist to tell us to do the same thing that we just saw our child picking up, that baby doing the same exact thing. And we're like, oh wait, my child does that all the time, and I did not realize how comparison is. So those are the things when I'm thinking of, I'm like, it's really hard for us just to step back, take a deep breath, and look around. Like, you know, the answer might be right next to us, which is, you know, simple. It's just a different way of approaching the situation.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. We sort of talked kind of big picture about, you know, what like some of the strategies are and activities are, and I want to kind of think about this, but also engage the folks who are listening in to think about this with us. And so on the second page of the Jamboard, the question is, what is one resource or strategy or activity that has helped you or your family or your community? Because I think what we can do together is, you know, co-create a space where we're all thinking about what are the strategies that have helped us, that will continue to help us. You've heard from the speakers, but also I'd offer you all to just share a little bit, like if there is, like, you know, at Welcoming America, we love toolkits. Right? Anybody got a toolkit they want to share, or a one pager or something like that, or just a piece that they do that you do on the regular. And so, like, just get very specific with me about like a strategy, like what that you use, or a meditation you like, or or your own touchstone, I guess. Lisa, do you want to go first?
Sure. I wouldn't say that I have any particular, you know, toolkits or resources or things like that, but at least, you know, what can you do? I feel that at least here at work, I think this pandemic made my coworkers and I a lot closer. So we've all become such great friends at this point. And I just feel like we know each other so well, to the point where, you know, on a daily basis, I know they care about how I'm doing and vice versa. And sometimes for me, some days are just really hard, you know, in a pandemic. And so some days we all just sit and we just cry. And some days, and I feel like before I was definitely the type of person who couldn't let that vulnerability out. And I think at least this pandemic did teach me that it is okay to be a human being and just have emotions at times and just cry it out. And other days, because we work with kids, I guess that's one of the good aspects about it, is that we just do whatever the kids are doing that day, whether it's coloring or just going out and playing hula hoop or doing all the smallest things that we forget about. And I think that's one of the beautiful aspects about children, is that children teach you so much about humanity and about kindness and just all around all the good things that exist that as adults we sometimes forget about and overlook. And it's so beautiful to see how even the most mundane things can bring you so much joy on a day-to-day basis. And so I think I've just kind of gone back to thinking about what it was like as a child and what are things that I would have enjoyed doing now. And so I think I've been able to find a lot of joy in that, in just doing all the smallest day-to-day things for care.
Oh, Lisa, I love that. And it goes with Sabia's too, right? Think like a child. You know, what would a kid do? And honestly, if you want brutal honesty, ask either a toddler or a teenager, right? They are going to say it, which is beautiful. And we're scared to do that, or I'm scared to do that half the time. And I think, you know, going along with that, one of the things that I had to learn was I don't have to do it all. I can't do it all, right? And I suck at boundaries. I'm horrible. I will say yes to all of the things. And I can't say no to something that makes me a mean person. I don't want to look like a bad person, right? And so what I really try to do and what I try to teach is, okay, what's my core value? And for me, it's connection. And I only let myself pick one, and I've been learning to only pick one, because otherwise everything's important, then you don't have any boundaries anyway. So if my value is connection, what do I want to say yes to? You know, when I'm home with my family, I want to say yes to them. I need to shut the computer, which when I was working at home, it's hard to do that. There's no transition, there's no drive time, there's no commuting, there's no, you know, let's play some good music on the radio on the way. So how do you transition? So saying yes to things and making that list, oh, now it's easier. These things I have to say no to. And I love on our Jamboard here, yoga and mindfulness. I'm going to admit I'm a yoga school dropout ×2. And I'm a runner, and sometimes runners and yoga folks don't go together well, and they should. And so I think about the fit. We also work with farmers in the Midwest. And if you said, hey, dear farmer, we're going to ask you to work on some mindfulness, they're going to look at me really, really strangely. So it's the how I present things, I think a lot of times is what's more important than what I'm actually presenting. If I said, what's rolling through your head as you're on the tractor in the field for 8 hours, then we can start a discussion. If I say, hey, you should really practice some mindfulness and this is what it's going to be, they're probably going to not be very kind to me. So I'm learning that how, as well as with myself.
I want to experiment with something here because I feel like this is such an enlightened group. I want to feel the energy exchange. So there's something that we love to do. It's a strategy. We do it with adults in the workplace as well as youth. And it's to think about the power of food and how it nourishes us physically, but it nourishes us in other ways. And so now I want you to imagine your favorite word that nourishes your body, mind, or spirit. So think of it like food word or food art. So think of a word. And are people allowed to unmute themselves, Molly? Okay. So I want to popcorn around the room and see if we can get a few people to share out a word that nourishes you and your spirit or your body or your mind in some way, that just fuels you, makes you feel good or calm or resilient or releases anger or whatever it is, something that's a yummy word, because you never know, your word might completely create a beautiful shift for someone else. So I can start. I'm going to use the word lightness. Anybody willing to go? Can people self-unmute? They can? Okay.
Yep. I also just wanted to say I went ahead and unspotlighted us. So I would also invite you, let's dive in. We're going from this great activity into some questions. So join us, turn your video on if you feel so desired, and unmute yourself. Let's open it up. Let's do it.
What's a word that nourishes you, your body, mind, or spirit?
I have a word. It would be in spite. Because
Beautiful.
yes, you can have things that are going on in your life. Things are always going to be happening. But there's beauty in spite. There's power in spite. There's triumph in spite. So
that's delicious. Thank you. Is it Avaria?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was delicious. Any other yummy words?
How about balance?
Wonderful. Thank you. Is it Leslie? Leslie?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Wonderful. Balance can mean so many things too.
I would say serenity. And for any Seinfeld fans, it also has the comedic effect for me, the Serenity Now thing, but also just serenity in general. Just that
serenity now, the urgency of being serene. Yes.
And I also need comedy.
Is it Sandra or Sandra?
It's Sandra.
Sandra, thank you so much for that yummy word. Anybody else have a word?
I actually really like fierce because it helps me let go of sort of feeling like a victim and be more of an active agent.
Oh, powerful. Thank you. Is it Sabrina?
Yes. Yes,
okay,
it is.
Thank you so much for fierce.
I was going to share, I think my word is kind of a breath and get into a mindset. So I say to myself a lot, often aloud, okay. And that kind of gets me ready for the next thing. So mine is just okay.
Wow. Vanessa, I just had an aha moment listening to you say that, because I immediately started breathing differently when you said that. Thank you. Any other words? Well, thank you all for being courageous enough to share your voices out loud. If you didn't feel comfortable saying your word out loud, but you prefer to put it in the chat, I invite you to do so. We can flood the chat with more yummy words as well. But thank you for doing that briefly with us.
Thank you, Emmy. That was fantastic. And I'm seeing a bunch in there: vulnerability, abundance, pause. All these super important important words and phrases. Love, pace. Oh, that's a great one. Oh, Angelique, is it Salama? Is that how you pronounce that? Is that the best way? That's probably not at all the right way.
Salama.
Salama. Thank you.
Yes, salama.
Salama.
Forgiving, pace, appreciate, love, what's next, pause, abundance, vulnerability. Oh, this is like a 5-course meal and nourishing words. Thank you, everybody, for that energy exchange. That's really special.
I think one of the it's really like 2 words, but it is yes and, right? Yes and is something that I've been thinking about a lot. What's next? Yes, Jenny.
Molly, I think that yes and is so important as we're working with, if we want to call it diversity, equity, inclusion, if we want to talk about welcoming, if we want to talk about interaction. I mean, so many of us love buts, the word but, that is. And you know, I love you, but would you replace the roll of toilet paper? Sounds much different than I love you, and would you please, you know, replace the toilet paper? Still the same thing. It's the and is that softer. The and is I'm working on being anti-racist and I'm stuck with this right here, or I'm struggling with this. When we use and, it has that support almost, and it has that let's get away from either or. Let's go with these gray areas. Let's go with there's all of these things that I can do. So those possibilities. So thank you for that and, because I think that is so important for us. This pandemic sucks, and I've learned some good things about myself.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody for being here. And I want to open it up if folks have questions for our panelists. Oh, Lisa says she loves the marching band photo, and watching Heather's kids play in the marching band is a real joy. So I hope we all get to see marching bands again someday too. I feel you on that one. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment. We have about 10-ish or so minutes to kind of just have a little bit of a conversation. And I think so if you feel comfortable and want to unmute and ask a question, great. If you are not feeling comfortable, you can pop something in the chat. Otherwise, you know, I think we can ask our panelists if they have any other questions as well. So. Lisa, yes, Lisa, do you have something you'd like to ask?
So I chose the word pace because I've noticed during this stay-at-home time, working from home, a lot of my colleagues are trigger happy on the computer. Like they have to answer really quickly. And I think after several months of that, I felt like I need to pace myself, and they should probably pace themselves for the betterment of all of us, because that rapid firing of emails and things, the postings, and we didn't have to react that quickly when we were in person, you know. You were allowed to sit at your desk and do work, and I think it just got out of control after a while. And so I've been working on this since the new year to just try to pace myself. And, you know, it's working for me, but I feel a lot of stress when I still see that rapid fire going between my colleagues. So I'm still working on that aspect. You know, it's not something I'm doing to myself, but it's how I'm taking in what's happening around me. And it's not even around me because I'm here in my living room, you know. But anyway, I just wanted to explain a little bit of the word pace and what it means to me, and maybe get some feedback on what else it could mean to others.
Lisa, I think that's beautiful. At the beginning of the pandemic, when we were sent home and all of a sudden talk of furloughs and things like that, I got anxious. And knowing that I have friends and family and people who have essential jobs and can't not work in the place, you know, so there was that guilt, all the things. So I took every single training that I possibly could through Madison and through Extension. And honestly, of the probably 13 that I took, I do 2. I realized I was ridiculous, but it took almost breaking to realize, oh, I'm sprinting and I don't sprint well, and I can't sprint for more than a block, right? So it's, oh, that acknowledgement and that recognition is lovely, and as well as hard, because there's still folks who haven't realized that, and that is hard.
I appreciate what you said as well, Lisa, and I'm going to show you guys something that I have had going on during this panel. I have a little battery operated candle, and it's just in front of me during this, and occasionally I look at it and it just helps me to pace and breathe. And my word for the day was lightness, so I'm sure there's a reason for that, but sometimes just having something with me to deal with that sensory overload and pacing helps. Sometimes I happen to have an altar with some items on it, like I have a rose quartz. Sometimes I rub that. My candle, or a rubber band, even just a manipulative something that's a stress reliever, or something that helps me realize, like, everyone else can do what they need to do and move at their own pace, but this it's kind of my reminder. It's okay, move in your lane the way you need to move, and give yourselves moments where you remind yourself to pace in the midst of the crazy traffic going on mentally and physically.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. Like, you know, I appreciate what you say, Lisa, because pace means a lot to all of us, and we forget that in the day there's 24 hours, and we don't need to be 32 hours of working, you know, and we have to pace ourselves. And a lot of the times stress can be physically, not just mentally at the same time, where it all holds right here on our shoulders, you know, and we forget how to, you know, and we forget that there are ways to just take it that moment and release that stress, right? Which I want to invite you all to do a very quick, easy activity that help us, right? If you are sitting down, if you're standing up, I just want you guys to relax your shoulders and just wiggle your head side to side and rotate. Slowly take your time and pace yourself. Remember, look up and down. Keep a moment of you using your breath, and center back looking forward and move your shoulders backwards. Very easy exercise, right? Just by doing this here, we feel that, ooh, that release, that crack, and we go forward, right? We go forward. And at the same time, you can go one forward, one backwards. We can do that coordination, and we can reverse that same idea with the shoulders. And the last thing we will do it to take all in, all the stress, all the energy, just squeeze the neck, squeeze in, take that deep breath and release. When you feel like putting it all out, right? We do that, we just take a lot of the shoulder, like all that, that helps, let me continue. I do that with the shoulder when I'm sitting a lot, I'm like, wait, I need to move. So I'm just like taking my time. It's like, okay, it's too much stress, moving my shoulder to help that, right? Hand on the shoulder and just press it on it right behind your neck, the low part, you just like put a little pressure on the point over there, and just hold for a second, just, yeah, I see Elisa just like looking up and just relax your shoulder, relax your head as you feel and loose it up. And we're ready again, right? To move it. But that's the best answer you like you say, you realize how much you're doing it and how much you're going for. And there is like pace and boundaries. Going through the virtual, a lot of the leaders forget about that. We need to pace ourselves. We need to have some boundaries. And there are times that for myself, I turn my cell phone 8 o'clock. I don't answer any phones. I don't answer any emails. I pick it up the next day early in the morning. However, I'm not obligated to wake up with my phone next to me and just like look at my phone, my emails. Nah, I'll take my time, have my breakfast, get myself ready, do my meditation, do a little my stretching, and then I get into the work when I'm ready. Thank you.
Thank you. I also wanted someone in the chat said that it's okay to pace ourselves now, and also acknowledging the feeling of not being as productive as before, if that's accurate or if it's just a feeling. I think that's very important, especially roles changed throughout the pandemic. Some of us became caretakers, some of us daycare came inside our home, some of us we became the leaders in our community when no one understood what was going on. So I think that's a great reminder that at the end of the day, if you feel like if you weren't productive, just think of all of the things that you're doing that isn't within your work bubble, and you'll acknowledge how much it is that you do for others in your community. And so Sandra, thank you for that comment in the chat. And then I just wanted to add my own little thing. I do yoga with Adrienne online. And one of the comments she always says is like, release your jaw, which I wasn't aware that I tighten my jaw throughout the day. And so like in the practice, she's telling you to like work through your yoga pose, but then she'll say, release your jaw. And then you'll be like, oh. So I wrote it on a Post-it note and I have it on my desktop, and sometimes I'll look at it and I'll be like, oh, release the jaw, like just relax. And it's so strange. I never noticed that I had done it before. And sometimes my partner will go, will you breathe? And then I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you're not breathing. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah. So just writing things down, like Sabi, like you mentioned, like rolling your shoulders, releasing, just like remind yourself as you go throughout the day that this is something that we're just, starting to cleanse up. So thank you.
And what an opportunity we have as we move forward into whatever the new normal is, or the next normal, or whatever term we're all going to start calling it, is we get to intentionally move forward. What do I want this to look like for me? How do I want this to work for me? UW-Madison told us, okay, we want your butts in your seats on July 1st in your offices. And we're all like, you know what? We know you're a system, and we know you do your systemy things. And how will it work for all of us? How will it work for all of the folks we work with? I work with some folks with dementia. They are way looking forward to being in person, because dementia and being online doesn't work very well. And those folks, I mean, I have to hand it to our older adults, or some people call them the modern age, which I think is awesome. they've gotten on Zoom and are so good at it. So there's all of these opportunities, and we get to decide some of that, which is amazing.
Lisa, Emmy, we have 1 minute left. Do you guys have any final words for us before I close this out?
I just want to acknowledge everyone who was here today. I feel so blessed to have learned from all of you, to have exchanged some energy and heart-centered time. So thank you all. I want to also just say that Welcoming America, it's such an honor and a privilege for us to be a part of your community. We're here because of our longtime partnership relationship with the YMCA. And that was one of the most extraordinary gifts that they introduced us to Welcoming America years ago. And we've partnered with you in many capacities since. Our team of Get Empowered is 90% made up of mostly immigrants. So we represent 6 continents around the world, except for Antarctica. And you know, at the DNA core of who we are is diversity inclusion, and our people are diverse peoples. So this was just really special to have this time with everybody. We do offer some freebies. So I sent a flyer to Molly to share. We have a free wellness series for teens and adults, 3 days a week. It is online. So unfortunately, if someone doesn't have access to online, it could be tricky unless you can figure out ways to share things. But that's something that we would love to share with all of you. If it's of support in any way, there's adult Zumba and some stress relief and yoga and mindfulness every week we're doing. Along with our kids program, but we thought something for the adults. We need to take those moments. So if that's of use to anybody, we extend that invite to you. But thank you again, everybody, for giving us space to feel heard as well.
Thank you.
And just thank you everyone for having me. I really appreciated the opportunity. And, you know, I hope that when we all leave this meeting, that we all take at least one moment to talk to one new person whose name we don't know, who we've never reached out to, whether it's in your office building, whether it's your mailman, someone in your community who you've never reached out to, and just, you know, say hi and ask them their name and find out something about them.
Okay. Well, thank you again, everyone. Thank you so much on behalf of Welcoming America and Emmy, Sabia, Heather, Elisa, thank you Lisa, thank you so much for this great discussion. This session, as well as all of the other sessions, are being presented as part of the interactive. And so for attendees in the room and speakers, we'll be sending out those recordings shortly. And so you'll be able to access any of those sessions again. Again, please share the hashtag Interactive 2021 and take a moment to head into the SCED agenda and leave your feedback. If you are not a member of Welcoming America, we invite you to check out our website, welcomingamerica.org, where you can also sign up for our general newsletter and learn about becoming a member if that's something that is so interesting, interests you. If you are a member of Welcoming America, do not forget we have the Welcoming, and if you are a member of our Welcoming Network, you can join us for our member-only networking hour that starts in 12 minutes. So on that note, this concludes actually the final programming of the Welcoming Interactive 2021. We really hope that you've gained new ideas, been inspired, and made some great new connections. And yeah, talk to somebody you may not have. And so we just really thank you for sharing your valuable time with us today. And we truly look forward to seeing you in person in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2022. So be well, everyone. Take care. And again, thank you so much for joining us.